You've probably noticed that there have been a lot of accusations of Democrats and Republicans engaging in power grabs lately. Let's talk about it. And of course, as usual, sources are in the description below. Earlier this month, President Trump was hospitalized with the coronavirus, the first hospitalization of a sitting president since Ronald Reagan was shot in 1981. Trump recovered fairly quickly, though his tweeting did seem a little bit more manic than usual, likely because of the steroids and therapeutics that were in his system. On October 9th, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi announced a bill authored by Congressman Jamie Raskin that would establish a commission on presidential capacity to discharge the powers and duties of the office. It builds on the 25th Amendment, which governs presidential succession and the transfer of power from an incapacitated president. Section 4 of that amendment states that either the vice president and the majority of the cabinet can declare that the president is incapacitated and therefore unable to function as the president for the time being, or that Congress can appoint a commission in place of the cabinet to make that determination. Some folks see this as a power grab by Pelosi and the Democrats, claiming they'll use it to replace the next president, moving Pelosi closer to the presidency since the Speaker of the House is third in line. This is nonsense, which is clear if you actually read the bill. The commission is literally designed to prevent that from happening. It would include 4 physicians and 4 psychiatrists, 2 of each being selected by the leaders of each major party. Another 8 members, consisting of former high-ranking executive branch officers, would be jointly appointed by leaders of both parties, making 4 Republican appointments and 4 Democratic appointments. That means the commission would consist of 16 members who then would elect a physician from outside the committee to serve as its chair and therefore as a tiebreaker. None of the appointees can be members of the sitting presidential administration, and the vice president would still have to sign off on their decision, meaning that the commission would not have unilateral power. This would, contrary to Republicans' accusations, actually make it less likely that something sketchy could happen with the presidential line of succession. The reason why it only just came up recently is because the last time we had a crisis where the president might be incapacitated was in 1981, as I mentioned earlier. These sorts of issues are often ignored until we have crises like the one we almost had when President Trump got sick. So there's a perfectly logical and uncynical explanation for this timing. And actually, Congressman Raskin had proposed such a bill back in 2017, meaning the Democrats did try to address this issue a while ago, but it didn't go through. Besides, even if this bill somehow got through Congress, and it won't, Trump would veto it, even though it would help prevent the partisan removal of a president by their cabinet. This is especially weird because the big conservative conspiracy theory right now is that the Democrats want to use Biden as a Trojan horse to get Kamala Harris into the White House and then have the cabinet remove Biden so that Harris becomes president. But such a partisan removal would literally be prevented by the creation of a commission like the ones the Democrats have proposed, because it would be bipartisan and outside of the administration rather than the inherently partisan body that is the president's cabinet. But I digress. There have also been accusations by conservatives like Dan Bongino who claim the Democrats have been planning a coup to overthrow President Trump. Of course, that's not true. Rather, a bipartisan group met to wargame or simulate what might happen if Trump refuses to concede the election if he loses. This is a distinct possibility because he has consistently refused to say that he would concede or commit to a peaceful transition of power in that event. That, by the way, is completely unprecedented in presidential history and is a huge threat to some of the most sacred values that we hold as Americans. There's also the accusation that the Democrats want to engage in court packing. This is when a political party moves to increase the number of justices on the Supreme Court so that the president can appoint more justices that are favorable to that party's agenda. Franklin Roosevelt tried this and it went horribly for him. This is an issue because some of the progressive Democrats have suggested that a Biden administration should pack the court in response to Amy Coney Barrett's confirmation, which gave the Supreme Court a 6-3 conservative majority. Senator Harris gave an evasive answer to the question about court packing at the vice presidential debate, making Republicans even more concerned about this possibility. But Biden recently unveiled a plan to appoint a bipartisan panel of constitutional law experts to study how best to reform the court system, which has become a political football as clearly borne out not only in the Barrett nomination, but also in the appointment of federal judges as well. Biden's approach is a balanced one and could provide a much-needed corrective to a troubled system. This also raises the problem of court stacking, of which the Republicans have been accused, though honestly, at least in terms of the federal court system, both parties have engaged in it recently. Tit for tat, Democratic and Republican court stacking in many ways prompted the talk of court packing by the Democrats, which has since been more or less overridden by Biden's proposal, which, by the way, received a lot of criticism from progressive folks who want to pack the court. That takes bravery on Biden's part. But this video is supposed to be about power grabs, so I should return to that subject, right? A little over a week ago, President Trump signed an executive order creating a new classification of federal employees, Schedule F, who could be fired without being able to appeal the decision. It's unclear how many government positions would be shifted to fall under this new classification, but the executive order has raised serious questions about the president using it to ensure personal loyalty to him. In fact, it has already led to a very public resignation by the chairman of the Federal Salary Council, who is also a lifelong Republican who has served under 3 Republican and 3 Democrat presidents. Career civil servants are supposed to only be loyal to the Constitution, not to one particular president. The executive order has also prompted a lawsuit from the National Treasury Employees Union and a bill in Congress looking to block the executive order, as many see it as an attempt to politicize government service. This isn't surprising, though. Trump fired or replaced 5 inspectors general in 2020 alone. Inspectors general, or IGs, are responsible for conducting oversight of government operations. They serve as watchdogs and handle whistleblower complaints, helping to expose corruption and other illegal practices within the government. According to the Congressional Research Service, only 1 IG was fired from 2000 through 2019. But Trump fired or replaced 5 IGs this year, largely to protect people in his administration from accusations of improper conduct. Trump's administration also worked to prevent the oversight of the distribution of COVID-19 relief funds, and his Department of Justice worked on behalf of his personal interests on several occasions, which is, by the way, not supposed to happen. Trump has also gone after career civil servants like Alexander Vindman, whose testimony during the impeachment process corroborated a whistleblower's account of Trump's call with the Ukrainian president in 2019. Trump not only called the unnamed whistleblower a traitor and a spy, but suggested they should receive the death penalty for doing their job. The Trump administration also forced Vindman and his brother out of their positions at the White House. Vindman retired in July, citing, quote, a campaign of bullying, intimidation, and retaliation by the White House. Vindman is just one example. Trump has also been absurdly partisan in his appointments and has seen an obscenely high turnover rate of 91% in his non-cabinet advisors, and he set a record for cabinet-level turnover in the first term of a presidential administration, according to a Brookings Institution study. Some former cabinet members have gone on to condemn Trump in the harshest possible terms, as when celebrated retired Marine General James Mattis tore into Trump for his unconstitutional response to the George Floyd protests. So who's really engaged in a power grab here? The Democrats, who have put forth long-needed legislation that would actually prevent partisan shenanigans in a case necessitating the use of the 25th Amendment, who are concerned about Trump not peacefully leaving office if he loses the election, and who intend to appoint a commission to study the court system, which needs serious reform, or the Republicans, led by Trump, who forced through a Supreme Court justice shortly before an election, who signed an executive order allowing him to demand the personal loyalty of civil servants, who fired or replaced a record number of inspectors general this year, who has gone after whistleblowers and blocked proper oversight, who has used the Justice Department for personal legal matters, and has been unable to maintain any semblance of consistency or functionality within his cabinet because he can't tolerate criticism. I don't know. It seems pretty clear to me. Thanks for watching. Be safe.